There's a new crackdown on the gun industry.
Of course there is. Hey there, friends. Welcome back to another Legally Armed America video. I'm, of course, Paul Glasgow here, the one and only truth pimp, dealing you a vulgar display of logic and reason on a daily basis. Look, guys, I've been, if you want to call it that, a Glock guy for many years now. They're certainly not my favorite brand by any stretch, and mainly because, especially whenever I was going through a phase of I want coolness, they weren't providing it. It was just the same, we got finger grooves this year. It's the same old stuff. However, I bet I own more Glocks than every other brand of pistol, and I've got a lot of firearms. So I'm not here to bash Glock pistols. It's the company I have a problem with. This video shows the frustration from someone like me who actually likes their guns. But man, I gotta say, Glock might have shot themselves in the foot with some of their more recent actions regarding the conversion devices, the Glock switches as they call them. I'm gonna play a video from you from not quite a year ago where a lot of this stuff started kind of coming to light. You started getting these attorneys general who were going after Glock, and Glock kind of chummed the water themselves during this process and did not help it, certainly didn't take a stand with the Second Amendment community.
There's a new crackdown on the gun industry. New Jersey Attorney General Matt Platkin is suing the gun maker Glock for allowing handguns to be turned into automatic weapons. The civil litigation is considered the largest case against the gun industry. It calls on Glock to suspend sales of its switchable firearms to the civilian market, alleging the weapons can easily be made into illegal machine guns with an inexpensive add-on component known as a Glock switch. That enables the pistols to fire up to 1,200 rounds a minute. The AG calls it a threat to public safety, accusing Glock of profiting from it. Senior correspondent Brenda Flanagan reports.
You get one shot per trigger pull on an unmodified Glock 9mm pistol. But Jersey's Attorney General played a video to show how adding this little piece called a switch transforms that Glock into an illegal machine gun.
A switch enables a Glock to automatically fire up to 1,200 rounds per minute. For decades, Glock has knowingly sold products that anyone with a screwdriver and a YouTube video can turn into a military-grade machine gun in a matter of minutes.
Attorney General Matt Platkin announced he's leading a coalition of attorneys general from 16 states seeking to combat gun violence by coordinated enforcement of civil and consumer protection laws. The first action, a landmark lawsuit against Glock filed by Platkin along with Minnesota's Attorney General.
This is the most consequential and significant lawsuit ever filed by state attorneys general against a major firearms manufacturer.
Police report a plague of switch Glocks. One recent study shows the ATF seized more than 5,400 guns with conversions between 2017 and 2021 nationwide. That's a 570% increase over the 814 converted weapons seized between 2012 and 2016. Glock doesn't make the switch, but folks can buy one online or make their own with a 3D printer. And Platkin says Glock profited.
Glock's owners sat in Austria, where they are based, and lined their pockets with products paid for by American bloodshed. And they did nothing.
That behavior, placing profits over human life, is unconscionable.
The lawsuit brings 5 counts against Glock under Jersey's firearms industry public safety law and 1 count under its Products Liability Act in the Superior Court's Chancery Division.
We are seeking an order that will stop Glock from continuing to market and distribute easily switched handguns to civilian consumers in New Jersey, as well as restitution for the public harm Glock has caused.
So a lot to unpack there, right? First of all, this sounds like reparations to me. I mean, let's be honest. Who's going to get the reparations, the harm that's been caused, the payments, if it were to ever happen to victims or people affected? It's reparations. It's stupid. Again, these are people who put themselves in these places. I'm talking about gang or wannabe gang members and gang members putting themselves in these types of situations. And now, because they get gunned down by one of their homies, suddenly they get money because somebody on the other side of the globe made a firearm that they illegally modified. Stupid, sheer stupidity. And this whole claim about a Glock being able to fire 1,200 rounds a minute is absolutely stupid. We know that a 17-round magazine that would come standard on one of these firearms is probably going to be dumped in a little over a second, right? So figure 2 seconds for a 33-round, what do they call it, the extendo stick, the extended magazine for the Glock. 33-rounder, you're going to dump that in 2 seconds or 3 seconds. I've seen how these guys operate. One reason why more people aren't shot by these Glock switches is because they can't hit anything. They simply can't hit anything. Now we want to throw in mag changes. Let's see some videos on that. I would love to see video on Gary and Rodney in the hood doing mag dumps with their Glock switches and changing magazines out. I searched high and low. Not a single video I could see out there on that. But notice in this video, all the people standing behind there, law enforcement. You keep thinking that law enforcement doesn't support this kind of stuff. These are all law enforcement officers who were standing behind attorneys general and supporting the fact that they're suing a company of the same brand of firearm that they wear on their side. Why? Because they truly believe in their minds that they are the only ones who should be able to carry these types of firearms. They don't think you should. So they're standing in solidarity for these pistols to be taken from you while they continue to carry them because they are in, according to them, an elite class. Now, real quick, let me throw a little bit of history at you. Glock was designed roughly 1982. Put out on the street, started to become popular. In 1996, an independent person, completely separate from Glock, no affiliation whatsoever, designed the Glock switch. So we had a 14-year period of time where there was no Glock switch. And they're trying to blame Glock for designing something that they knew for decades. Well, once 1996 came and went, yeah, they knew there was a product available to them, or at least a product that was available to be affixed to the Glock. Doesn't mean Glock has at that point the responsibility to redesign their firearm to not accommodate that. Because what happens? Somebody else just designs another one. This whole idea that you can design a firearm that can never be fired in a fully automatic fashion is a myth. It's a unicorn. It doesn't exist. Somehow, some way, every single firearm, I'm not saying it's pretty, and I'm not saying it's going to be efficient, but every single firearm can be made. And if you want to use the fully automatic fashion of repeatedly firing a round after round after round, every firearm can be modified. Let me rephrase that. Every single semi-automatic firearm could be modified to be able to do that. Now, how did Glock kind of shoot themselves in the foot, you might ask? Well, Glock has not been known to side with us. In fact, they have pandered a lot. And a lot of what they're doing right now with the V is pandering as well. Earlier this year, Glock sent out a letter practically begging politicians for their approval. They praised lawmakers for, quote, public safety leadership and expressed support for state legislation banning machine gun conversion devices. This was all virtue signaling. There was no reason for that. This did not gain Glock any favor. Now, maybe some of the politicians that they grease their palms with were like, oh, okay, well, if it's a toss-up, I'll go with Glock on this one. But they didn't gain favor with anybody who was actually pursuing these lawsuits against them. How stupid was that? Why would you semi-cave in a situation where you have nothing to gain? The whole point of a compromise is to gain something in return. You gave something up and got nothing in return by this little cave of yours, this little kneeling. At the time, it looked like corporate damage control to Glock. PR move basically saying, hey, we're one of you guys. Problem is, Glock's Please Like Us letter didn't stay in the press room. That same language the words Glock themselves wrote ended up being used against them in court. They literally gave the enemies the ammunition to sue them and the wording to use in the lawsuit against them. They tried to look responsible and ended up looking weak. This political hand-holding, it never works. Maybe Austrian politics is different than American politics. I don't know. I think politics in general is scummy. So surely it functions the same way in Austria. What did they think they were gaining by this hand holding and, patting each other on the butt whenever these people, they knew they were in bed with these anti-gun people? And their next brilliant move after a series of lawsuits broke out was to discontinue all their super popular pistols, the ones shooters actually loved. They quietly rolled out a redesign line that supposedly can't be easily modified with those so-called Glock switches. So it supposedly can't be easily redesigned. Means with a little effort, it can. That's exactly what that wording means. It's not a possibility. It can happen, and it will happen. Somebody in China right now already has a shopping cart with lots of these ready to roll. And they're like, put the V out there. We're ready to sell you a new Glock switch. Now, I think another thing that might have hurt Glock is the fact that they have the Glock 46 that was released over in Germany. A lot of these people claim that that firearm cannot be designed with any type of Glock switch. Again, somebody just hasn't put the effort out with it yet. But I think that kind of hurt Glock because now, granted, that particular firearm is not for civilian use. It's for law enforcement use in Germany. But nevertheless, it shows that Glock internally is willing to try to design a firearm that will not, or at least not easily, can't be changed into a, quote, fully automatic pistol. So by not allowing that to be sold to consumers in the United States, still allowing the older versions that could be equipped with the conversion devices, it made it look like Glock was saying, yeah, we know our pistols can be modified easily. We're just choosing not to sell that particular one in the States. Now, I personally have not put my hands on the Glock V. I don't know if it's similar in any kind of way to the German pistol. I doubt it because I haven't heard anybody make that connection yet. But I'm curious, those of you who have put your hands on one, what is it? Tell me about it. Send me pictures, whatever you've got. I've seen some pictures rolling around out there. But again, by not having to put one side by side and look at them, I can't tell the difference yet. I know Mike over at Mr. Guns and Gear has put a recent video out on that, so you might want to go check his out. But let's be honest here, we're kind of a byproduct of the market. Glock gets some pretty big paychecks from law enforcement and from the militaries around the world. So they do have a focused effort to provide those folks with those particular firearms. And again, I can't help but notice all the cops in the picture in the background who were more than happy to see Glock get sued whenever they themselves have that super duper special Glock that they feel like they are only entitled to carry. But in the case of Glock having so much business with law enforcement and military, sometimes whenever you talk the talk with government and government entities so much, you start to think like them. Do you understand what I'm saying? They're so used to hearing what these law enforcement people and even some in the military around the world have to say about what they need. And again, they put themselves in an elite status. That Glock has these conversations with these people who see themselves as elites and better than us. And you have to think that, did Glock start thinking like that? Because instead of them standing firm with the Second Amendment community, the people who made the Glock name what it is, it seemed like they were trying to play both sides and patronize both groups of people without making much of an effort to patronize us, the civilian market, because I think they felt like they already had it sewn up with the amount of sales they were already getting. The crazy thing is Glock trying to pat these politicians on the butt here in the States and say, attaboy, you can't reason with politicians who want to legislate you out of business. Doesn't matter how big of a smile these politicians put on their faces when Glock gives them an attaboy. These same politicians want to sue Glock and see Glock sued out of existence. They want to regulate them out of existence. They're not their friends. Glock can't see that. So folks, I'm not hating on Glock. Their pistols still run like dirty tanks. They do what they got to do. But as a company, they have lost sight of who brought them to the big dance. It wasn't bureaucrats whose butts are kissing right now. The whole point of getting law enforcement military to use your firearms is because it gets a certain cool factor to it that translates to the civilian market. It was everyday law-abiding gun owners who trusted Glock when other brands were still trying to figure out how to feed a hollow point into this type of pistol. Real quick side note, I am proud to say that one of my partners, Duria, who makes the DY9 that I carry on a daily basis, that is my carry gun, they have no intentions of doing what Glock's doing. They're not sending attaboy letters out to these politicians trying to cater to them and make them feel good about their anti-gun stance. I like the fact that some of these companies, like Duria out of Jacksonville, Florida, these people are standing firm. Look, this is our product. We're going to sell our product. We're not going to sit here and somehow admit guilt that we might have known something 30 years ago, so we're sorry, so we're going to change our entire line. Nope. My DY9 is going to sit on my hip just like it's made right there. And again, my friends over in Jacksonville, Florida, with the U.S. plant in Duria, I'm proud to be associated with them and for their firm, concrete stance in the Second Amendment community. Glock so desperately wanted to look like a responsible corporate partner. But by doing so, they ended up looking like a company that was weak and was pandering to people who want them to be sued or at least want them to be put out of business. They don't see the signs. They can't spot the red flags that we all spot. So the Glock V is going to be on the market any day now. Some of you guys might already have one in your hands. Again, when I put one in my hands, I'll go through it, I'll lay them side by side, and I'll show the very distinct or indistinct differences between the two. But either way, Glock kind of had all this in motion. I mean, when they started to pander to these politicians, they had the Glock V in the pipeline. You don't change things that fast in the blink of an eye once the lawsuit started rolling in. They were already planning to make this change. It might have even been planned to be made in January at SHOT Show. It's likely this launch, quote unquote, of the Glock V is a little bit premature because, again, why wouldn't you launch something that we know was already in the pipeline? Just launch it at SHOT Show, right? You can announce it in December, but usually the launches are at these big shows like the SHOT Shows. So just very unusual. I'm not sure if I'm wrong on this or not. Again, I'm trying not to, I don't hate the Glock pistols. And I'm trying not to hate on the Glock company because I want every firearm company to succeed. Because as a whole, these companies can fight a much bigger fight, right? Individually, it's tough. You know, the unlimitless or limitless supply of money of the federal government. Wait till the next Democrat administration gets in there. They will use all their resources to use the AG of the federal government to go after companies like Glock. And I feel like if there's a certain amount of solidarity between these companies where they mesh together and fight together, kind of like what we saw during the pistol brace issue, I feel like standing alone, these companies have a whole lot better chance of fighting the federal government and the different AGs in general from all the 50 states. But when they start fighting these fights separately and independently, and some caving like the appearance was with Glock, to me that weakens the overall efforts. And in many cases, I think it makes these AGs feel like they can smell blood in the water. Like, oh, look what Glock's doing. Glock's caving. They're pandering. We got them on the run. Guys, if you think I'm wrong about this, let me know in the comment section down below. Am I being too hard on Glock? Is Glock just doing what they have to do to continue to survive? Or should we see more of an effort by Glock to stand with the Second Amendment community and fight off these people? Or is it just easier for them to sign the check and say, you win, and then move on to the next lawsuit? Don't forget, guys, if you're looking for a book to educate yourself and to educate the idiots out there who can't think for themselves regarding mass shootings, go to damnliars.net. Again, damnliars.net, and get my brand new book, Damn Liars.
I'm sorry, I thought this was America.
It's hanging around.